Our okay. Can you hear me?
I didn't want to record the prayer.
Okay.
We just started recording.
Okay. We are recording this conference. So anyone who doesn't want their image shown on YouTube or our Facebook pages in the future, you can shut off your video now. But it is being recorded, just so people are aware. We have the ability to unmute ourselves, and with that comes some responsibility. We do not want to hear everything that's going on in everyone's house. There is sometimes commotion going on behind us. And so if you are not asking a question, that'll be opened up so that you can ask questions later. If you're not asking a question, could you please keep yourself muted? That is very much appreciated and very important. We want to hear the speakers. We want to hear those giving the presentation. See where I am here. Okay, I just would like to acknowledge that there has been a lot of work behind the scenes to make this conference happen, and we thank those people that have worked behind the scenes. Too many names to mention, but they know who they are, we know who they are, and thank you very much for doing the things you've done. Those presenters, thank you in advance for all the effort that you have put into it, and we look forward to hearing from you. Brother Dan Scher is hosting this meeting on Zoom, and hopefully there's no glitches, but if there's a glitch, be patient and just stay here with us. I'd like, as we begin, I'd like everyone to know that the Kingston District building sits on the land of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Wendake Neon Wencio First Peoples. Today, we respectfully acknowledge the Indigenous people to whom this land belongs. Through this family history conference, we encourage you to ponder the privilege we have of being able to access our ancestral records, a privilege denied to many Indigenous peoples. We hope you will include in your prayers that Indigenous history and life be recovered and preserved for future generations. In Canada, September 30th recognizes the dehumanizing experiences of Aboriginal peoples and their families that were impacted by the Aboriginal residential school system. Throughout history and up to and including today, many peoples around the world have experienced and continue to experience prejudice and hatred and marginalization. Latter-day Saint scripture quotes Jesus Christ stating, "Be one, and if ye are not one, ye are not mine." And that's in the Doctrine and Covenants, section 38. President Russell M. Nelson of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints stated that only the comprehension of the true fatherhood of God can bring full appreciation of the true brotherhood of men and of the true sisterhood of women. That understanding inspires us with passionate desire to build bridges of cooperation instead of walls of segregation. Throughout this history conference, we encourage you to ponder how the pursuit of family history unites us as we search back through time and discover what we have in common and what we are all linked, and that we are all linked not only as a part of the human family, but as family. We pray that this understanding will inspire us to build bridges of cooperation, mutual respect, and friendship with others everywhere. Now, the church teaches us that we should live the gospel of Jesus Christ, as he gave us a perfect example while he was on this earth. We should care for the needs of those around us, of our families, and of all our brothers and sisters. We should invite all people to come under Christ. And we should unite our families here on earth. We should connect with our ancestors who have gone before, and we should do this in the ways that we will learn today and the ways we already know. The temples that are throughout the land are there for us to do sacred ordinances. We pray that we will use those temples in a righteous way, in a proper way. The temples are now open, brothers and sisters. So please do what you can to get to the temple. Make sure you have a current temple recommend. It's been a while since you've been able to be there, so you might forget that you might need to update your recommends. So please do so. We want you to be blessed by going to the temple. And we will learn what we need to today, and it will spark interest in some things that we maybe need to learn that we didn't even know that we needed. So hopefully today will be an uplifting experience for us all. And I'd like to turn the time over now to Sister Mimi Merrill, who will introduce our keynote speaker and also go through the program that we have set up for today. Sister Merrill. Sister Merrill, I see that you are muted.
I've sent her a request to unmute.
Okay.
Mimi, if you're having a hard time unmuting, please send me a message in chat.
I have a message here from Mimi, and she said, I have an emergency and need to leave. So I guess that we'll need to discuss the program and how it will take place. Maybe Brother Sherry, you understand the technology of it. You could outline the schedule and the breakout sessions, how those will work and how it will work with the consultants.
Okay, I'll do my best, and then Roy, you can correct me.
Okay.
So my understanding is that we're going to have two sessions, Family Search 101, which will run from 10:15 to 11, and then Preparing Temple Names Virtually from 11 to 11:30. And then our keynote speaker, Sister Pye Finch, will speak from 11:30 till 12. Now, during the first two sessions, there will be a breakout room where there's a specialist to answer any specific questions that you might have. So all you would do is go down to breakout room and go to breakout room number 1. It's labeled for a specialist. And then we would expect everybody to come for the keynote speaker. And then there's a break where my understanding was at the time that Sister Merrill was going to show some videos from 12 to 12:15. And then we're going to break off into 3 separate breakout sessions. When you go to breakout rooms in your menu and you bring that up, it will tell you which breakout room it has a title for each one, So you can go to them. You can go between sessions if you want to do that. And again, there will be a specialist room if you have any specific questions during that time period. And then at the end, everybody will receive a 2-minute warning that the meetings have to wrap up. That'll be just before 1 o'clock, and everybody will come back together for the closing remarks.
Okay. Any questions on that? That was a very clear-cut explanation, Brother Sherrick. Congratulations.
There you go.
Brother Preet, if Mimi is away on an emergency, what happens between 12 and 12:15 when she was going to show videos?
I don't have the answer to that yet. But
You,
by then we will.
by then you will? Great. We'll have faith in that. Thanks.
I'll send her a message to ask what she wants to do with that time if she's not available. Okay, thank you.
So in the meantime, I guess we should keep going.
It's now time for the break for the Brother Bennett's presentation. So we're right on schedule.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll take the floor then. This is fantastic. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. I popped a couple of topics off the organizers to see if there were specific things that they would like me to address with genealogy. I really got into it a couple of years ago. It's kind of a long story, but certainly a very interesting one we can talk about later on. So I'll show a couple of pictures. We're going to go through a couple of the introductory things, but I'm going to ask a question first. I'm just going to share my screen here. 1 sec here. I got a pop-up thing. And the question I'm going to ask, have you ever wasted time or money on something that didn't really matter a few years later? Now, everybody should be able to see a funny looking image on my screen. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see that. If you were around in the 1990s, you will have recognized this particular thing. It's called a magic eye. And like many trends that are out there, it's a really cool thing, and it seems really neat. But then 20 years later or 30 years later, you look at it like, man, so I really have spent $20 on a magic eye poster. And these posters, if you look at them and let your eyes relax, you'll see an image that comes out of the middle. This one here has an image of a shark inside. But as people, we have a tendency to spend time and money on things that don't really matter going down into the long run. But genealogy is one of those things that does have an impact later on and has an impact throughout generations. So unlike buying the magic eye poster in the 1990s to hang on your wall, which maybe is not so trendy anymore. Let me have a look here. I got some people here that say they can't see the screen. Things that don't really matter. Genealogy is one of those types of things that will matter in the long run. I'm going to end sharing my screen here. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. Can you see that picture there now? Okay. So like I said, you remember those things like a trend or anything else? Maybe we bought a poster or two or bought a book of magic eye designs. If you relax your eye, you can look through it and see it. But does that really matter 20 or 30 years later? Not so much. Whereas for genealogy purposes, it's something that's going to be much more profound and much more longer lasting. I'll stop sharing that there. So things we're going to talk about today, I'm going to show you the brief intro screen on how you get signed into Family Search. We're going to talk about a couple of the features in that Family Search as well. And I'm going to share a couple of stories of some of my ancestors that I found doing genealogy work that had not been fully communicated to me when I was growing up as a kid, and how the Family Search system can really work well as a system of record to help record things in their most pure form, if you will. So for example, if you have a journal entry can go in there written by the hand of an individual And rather than it becoming a story that gets passed down through generations, it gets changed over time, or gets things added to it, or gets embellished or gets forgotten. Family Search works as a really, really good tool of record to be able to do those types of things. So the first experience I'll briefly share is with one of my ancestors here by the name of Eli Bennett. And I'm going to show you a picture of him here briefly with his wife. Here's my share screen, and we're going to go to this screen here and share. So you should be able to see a picture there from Family Search. It shows a guy with a big bushy beard and his wife there. So I didn't know anything about this guy until about a year and a half ago. I knew that I had ancestors that were in the church from a long time ago. On my dad's side of the family, my mom is a convert that grew up in Etobicoke and then moved out west and met my dad. But I didn't really know anything about these guys. I knew they lived a long time ago, had horses and wagons, and showed up in Utah at some point in time. But what's interesting here is his son and his grandson, and actually the individual himself, recorded a bunch of their history, which when it was passed down to their children, they uploaded it eventually into Family Search over time. So we're able to see what these people wrote, what they thought, and what they did. So I've been doing this for myself, for example, notable things that occur in my life or interesting photos or things like that. I'll post them into my own profile so that my ancestors down the, or my descendants down the road will be able to see something about me. And I can show you a couple of those pictures in a minute. But what was interesting here, I had no idea that my ancestor, Eli Bennett, had become a bishop in Cedar Fort, Utah. And I didn't know that he knew the prophet Joseph Smith. So it says here in the middle here, his parents had moved to Shelby County, Illinois, where they joined the church and moved to Nauvoo. So I had no idea that I had ancestors that lived in Nauvoo. He was 14 years old, and he clearly remembers scenes of the pillage and carnage, the removal of the saints from Nauvoo. He was acquainted with the prophet Joseph and often had the privilege of seeing him, hearing, and speak. And so they came out to Utah in 1852 with ox and cow teams. And eventually he becomes a bishop, and then he dies there. His descendants end up going to southern Alberta with a church contract to dig ditches, and one of the descendants settles there. Now on the flip side, I moved to Gananoque about 3 years ago, and the only relatives that I knew of that I had in Eastern Canada were my mom's family that were roughly in Toronto. My grandmother immigrated from England, and my grandfather's parents had come from England somewhere along the line as well. But what I didn't realize was that I had other ancestors that had come from Germany, immigrated, and were on the Mayflower as well, immigrated to the United States, and then established families and things like that. And so this guy here was one of the descendants of one of these people that came on the Mayflower. On a sideline to these folks as well, is there was another family that came from Germany a little bit later on, and they were actually loyalist supporters in 1776 in the United States, and were Lutherans. And so in about 1785-ish, one of them that was a prominent Lutheran pastor decided to come to Canada. He came across the Cornwall and established the first Lutheran church in Ontario. And there's actually, I found that there was a plaque on the side of the road done by Archives Ontario, one of those blue historical plaques, just outside Cornwall, about 20 minutes this side of Cornwall, that talks about him and his life and him establishing the first Lutheran church. And we found his grave as well. When they flooded the St. Lawrence Seaway, they moved a bunch of the gravestones and maybe the bodies, I'm not sure, a bunch of the houses out of these small flooded communities and put them up in up around Cornwall. And so his grave site is up there. And we went through the graveyard as a family during COVID when we couldn't travel like we normally did. So we took a day trip out there. We found this Lutheran church, which has been closed now for 3 or 4 years. And in behind this Lutheran church where this plaque is, there's a whole bunch of his ancestors, all with the same names and cousins. And we started finding some of them in Family Search. We found that there were a bunch that were not captured in places like Ancestry.com or in Family Search and that type of thing. So we were able to add them into Family Search with pictures of their gravestones, and it was quite interesting. One of the other interesting things about this particular relative, I'm going to try to switch this over. There we go. Was that he quoted to his son and his grandson that after the prophet Joseph Smith died, he was in the meeting where Brigham Young came across as having the appearance of Joseph Smith, and he was quoted as saying, quote, "He walked like the prophet, his voice and gestures were those of Joseph," end quote. And so this is from his own words as a witness to that particular event with a couple of 100 other people that lived in that location at that time. And this is all recorded in his memories in Family Search. Stop sharing there for a minute. I got to click a couple of things closed here. So to get started, so I find this genealogy process to be very interesting. And I also find it interesting because it will completely refute the idea that people evolved from apes or algae or single cellular organisms and things like this. Because with genealogy, you have a direct line of person to person to person, which completely supports the gospel of Jesus Christ. It demonstrates fairness and equity amongst the gospel principles that a lot of other places don't have. And it also refutes a bunch of the incorrect ideas that we find in the world today. So to get started with Family Search, what you can do is you can sign up for an account, and I'll share my screen again here. And I'll go with this screen here. And so here's the sign-in screen. And so you'll see up here at the top right, you'll see a sign-in button and you'll see a create an account. So if you've already done a bunch of family history stuff, you already have an account, you just sign in like anybody else. If you haven't done it before, maybe you're a youth, maybe you're a new member, maybe you're somebody that's just not done it extensively before. I didn't really start doing this until a few years ago. So I had to go and set up and create an account, even though I've been a member of the church for a long time. So you can create an account here, and it's going to ask you for a couple of details. You'll need your membership number. I'm not going to go through the whole process because I already have one. I just had to open this in another browser that's not familiar with my automatic login for Family Search. But you click on here that you're a member. It'll ask you for your membership number, and it'll give you some extra features inside the Family Search account. So once you sign into there, you're going to see a screen that's going to look like this one here. And I'll switch this in a minute. Stop sharing that screen. And I will go to another screen right here. So your account is going to look something like this, or your opening page. So in this particular case, there's me in the middle here, and this will only be if you're not dead. This will be something that only you can see, or you can see your children, your immediate family. But it'll say living down here, like you can see my wife right there. My parents are not dead yet. All the rest of these people are all dead, so they'll be able to be visible by other people as well. And so you can see this by going into the family tree area, going into the tree, and then it shows up here as you. So I was talking with one of our members the other day, and he says, you know what, I know the name of my parents and my grandparents, and that's all I know. I'm like, okay, not a problem. Get signed in, set up your account, see you there, and then what you can do is you can start clicking up here. Now his parents were dead, so you can click on here, add a parent, type the parent's name in, and then if there's something already in Family Search, it will pop up and it will show you potential people that you can select from that are already captured in the system. And this works out really well. And I said, maybe it may be that somebody else has already put your parents in there. It may be that you type it in and then you'll get some suggested sources, which we'll see in a minute. It says, hey, here's a find a grave thing, or here's a thing from ancestry.com, or here's something from Family Search. And then you can start to connect all of these different chains here, and you can see them like the Eli Bennett guy that we were talking about. He's up here, up in the top. And there he is right there. And it keeps going with all the rest of these folks here. On the flip side, you might end up being in a position like these folks down here, where it pretty much ends right away. This particular one ends right away because my wife's family immigrated from Poland and Ukraine. Totally different way of writing down the language. Sometimes we don't have records. I can't read Polish or Ukrainian, neither can my wife. And there's not a ton of records on it. And so what we'd have to do is see if we could find something else that's in there. I had a friend that actually hired a genealogist that from Ukraine to read the records and start to find some of these things. And what was kind of ironic about this is his son ended up serving a mission in Ukraine, ended up serving a mission in the same area. His area ended up getting switched at the last minute. He ended up going to the area that his ancestors were from, and was able to tie into a bunch of his ancestry work there. And then from there, they were able to get a local genealogist to be able to dig in and read these records with the son as well. So it was kind of an interesting, you could say coincidence, or you could say divine intervention, whatever the case may be. But it was interesting, and I've heard that from a few other people as well, where somebody's gone on a mission not knowing where their ancestors came from, and then suddenly, boom, they find out that their ancestors actually came from that family. One of the features that you can see on here, obviously you can see how this chain works, but let's suppose I wanted to find, if I knew a name of one of my ancestors, and I wanted to find that individual. So in this particular case, I'm just going to move this thing out of the way here. So in this particular case, I know that I have an ancestor by the name of John Rolfe. I know who he was married to, and I wanted to figure out, okay, where can I find this individual? So in this screen that I've set up here, and I'll share my screen again here. Share screen. We're going to go to John Rolfe's screen right here. So right here, I know I have an ancestor by the name of John Rolfe. He was a male. I've got some information about when he was born and the year of his birth range. And so when we do these searches, like maybe you want to find out who your grandparents or great grandparents, where you heard a name, maybe you have some details about it, you can do these searches here. Now, one thing I do find is the searches typically give you a ton of information. So depending on the amount of knowledge that you know about the particular individual will limit the number of people that are found. So there's somebody that has the name John Rolfe, John or Rolfe, that's born in that range, born in this location over here, and there's 31,000 of them. But don't be alarmed. It's not really a big deal because you can go through here and it'll give you certain bits of information that you might be able to narrow in your search down. So for example, I know I have a ton of ancestors from Bristol. I know I have a ton of ancestors from near Stuttgart, Germany. And I have a bunch south of London, England. And so you can go through here and find these names to give you a couple of ideas. Now, I also know who this individual's spouse was. I gotta move this thing out of the way here. There we go. I keep getting a pull down menu here at the top. So let's suppose I narrow it down and I find the individual in my list. So there's John Rolfe right there. And you're like, oh, look, somebody else has put a whole bunch of really cool documentation in here about this individual. They put in a little life sketch here. They talk about the guy. He was in British colonial Virginia, did a bunch of cool stuff. They talk about some of the other family members that are there. And this one is actually really, really complete. And it's really complete because he was a historical figure, as I'm going to show you in a minute. And so sometimes you have these people that are historical figures that will have a ton of information. You can see the memories here. There's been multiple people that have uploaded all kinds of pictures about this guy. There's a plaque in the US about this guy. And you can upload a bunch of these things as well. Now, obviously, you'll see in a couple of minutes, not everybody has that. But if you're like, if it's already connected, you can also check and see how your relationship fits to this individual. So I can go here and hit view my relationship, and then it's going to go through all of these ancestors and who they were doing and what they were doing. And then you end up at the end, and there he is right there. So he was married to Pocahontas. Of Disney fame, yes, but Disney did not follow the actual story. She did not marry John Smith. She married John Rolfe. And they had a son and a daughter, and they had some military members that were in their family. And eventually they came out to being turning into Bennetts and various other people as well. And so there's Eli right there again that we talked about a few minutes ago. There's a Richard Bennett right there. And then you'll see my dad later on, who's also Richard Bennett. And so you'll see this direct line of your ancestors coming all the way down from other people's attachments or from your attachments. And these trees get built and they get built and they get built. So you end up finding some really interesting stuff about your ancestors. I knew that I was related to this guy, but I wasn't exactly sure how. But thanks to the family search system here, you're able to make those connections fairly easily. Now, sometimes you'll hit view my relationship and it'll say no relationship determined, and you're pretty sure there's a relationship. If you work your way through it, you find it's kind of like building something out of Lego. All these Lego pieces go together and they eventually build something, or like a puzzle piece. You know, you get the perimeter, but you're not sure about the middle. It's exact. I view it as almost exactly the same thing. Now, one of the features that I like to use here is the follow feature, and that's found right up here. I should still be able to see my screen there. If you click on that star, I'm not going to do it for this guy because I don't need to follow him. But if you click on the follow button, you can then come back. It's kind of like a bookmark, or it's something if you want, if you know there's other people working on a particular individual, or you want to come back and see that individual for later on, or perhaps you have ordinances you want to do for that individual, but you know you can't make it to the temple right away. So you can click on the following button, and then you can come back to that individual later on just by clicking up on this following button up here. And this will give me a list of all the different people that I'm following. And of course, they're all dead here. And I sorted these, like I've got 3,400 people that I'm following for various reasons, and it will tell you what the changes are. You can do different sort options to figure that out. So like all of these people in this that you see right away here, these are all direct ancestors of my mother's family that need temple work done. Or they're people that I want to find out more about, so I've put them down as a marker. And you can add as many as you want. And I mean, my list is big for a reason, because I'm using it to track different things. And I know that I can't send all of the names to the temple as well. So that's an option. A couple of the other options that we have. So here's your home screen when you come into, when you get signed in. And we see that in our recently viewed people, we saw me, we saw John Rolfe. We're going to talk about Urquhart right here. There's two of them. Actually, there's going to be three of them. We'll see in a minute. And there's Eli Bennett there, the guy that we talked about that knew Joseph Smith. So if we wanted to find Eli Bennett, what we could do is we could go to our family tree. We can go to find, and we want to find Eli Bennett in here. So here's all the data that we can put in about Eli Bennett. And if we type in Eli Bennett, and he'll show up here momentarily, because I've already pre-did this before when I was doing my rehearsals here. And we know he was born in Tennessee. So you could use this for your own parents. You could use it for your own grandparents. So I was teaching a class last year during COVID on Wednesday nights with the last branch I was at. And people are like, yeah, I know I have this information in a shoebox. She had a couple of one of the people there had a couple of shoe boxes of information with names and dates and stuff like that. And I said, well, let's check and see if they're already in the system. And this is how we did it. So here's Eli Bennett. He was born in Tennessee. I don't know what the date is necessarily. I know he died in 1906, but we're not going to put that in there. And we're going to hit find, and then we're going to see all of the people that come out with Eli Bennett, born in Tennessee. And we can be very specific on this by adding some other things, or we can hit the match all exactly, and that will narrow the list down significantly. But what it will also do is if somebody has spelled the name differently, and I find this a lot with German names in particular. So for example, a lot of German women between 1700 and 1900 were named Catherine. Now, is that Catherine with the K, Catherine with the C, or maybe Kate, or it could be Kathy? So if you use that exact function, you may miss out on some of the opportunities there. But we can see here that there's 9 results because we've narrowed it down to being fairly exact. And we see a bunch of people that were born in Tennessee. Bennett is a fairly common name. And if we go down, we know that the spouse was named Louisa May Zufeld. And so there's our guy right there. And he's already got a little code here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that code there. You can see that I copied the ID. And let's suppose we knew an ID number, or we wanted to go back to somebody that we've previously noted, and find that individual again. So we're going to go to find again. And there's a spot up here to putting in the ID number. So instead of searching by the name and everything, maybe we know an ID number. For example, sometimes when we're communicating with other people in the system, they'll send us an ID number and say, hey, do you know about this ancestor? And I'll show you how that works here in a second. And then we hit find, and boom, there's Eli Bennett right there. And we can click on his profile, click on his name, and his profile will all pop up. So I'm going to click on this individual right here. You can see the temple work is already done because it's grayed out. We've got some details in there. And let's just go to Eli, and we'll look at that communication feature right here. So let's suppose I find Eli Bennett, somebody else has put the information in, and I'm like, hey, wait a sec, my record says the guy was born in 1835, not 1831, and this happens a lot. We can go down and see the last person that entered data in for that record, and we can also see the sources. So if we click on the sources, we can lean over into this extra window that comes up, and it will pop up. My internet connection's a little bit slow here, and we can see all the sources that are there. And sometimes you'll see that there's sometimes errors with sources, or sometimes they're really broad, or sometimes they're really narrow. You can edit the birth if you have a source. And I'll show something here in a minute. And if you're not sure, if something is still a little bit sketchy or weird, you can see that there's like a whole bunch of people that have put stuff in here, like Elaine Wade, John Nielsen, Janine Christensen, Kaylee Nelson, somebody called Valkeith, Incognito Zero. So these people have all added something in there, but you can click on here and you're like, hey, wait a minute, I thought the guy was born in 1835, or I have a conflicting message. You can send a message with this little function here, and it shows the person's email address. And if they have the enable relationship viewed, you can see their relationship to that individual as well. So here's some kind of a third cousin, and we can send them a message. What I typically find, if the dates here are older than 2 or 3 years, I often don't get a reply. If they're within the same year, I know that person is active on the site, and they'll get the message, and that message will show up in their Gmail account or Yahoo account or whatever it is. The other thing that I was asked to take a look at or demonstrate was looking at duplicates. And I'm going to talk about duplicates, and I'm going to talk about sources as well. So these are common areas of concern, and I've got a little system that I use for doing that. So going into, I had a duplicate example, and I accidentally got rid of the duplicate this week when I was doing the genealogy work. So I had to go find another duplicate this morning. But no worries, there's all kinds of duplicate things. So you remember that we looked at that view my relationship, or we looked at the tree, and we can see a tree. So I've zoomed in on Gottfried Urquhart in Germany, and you'll see it was actually written in Alemanna, or sometimes you'll see it written in potentially different languages or interpretation from a different language, but we'll see that in a second. But if you go in here and you're like, okay, so I got my grandparents in there, I just connected up with another chunk of family tree stuff, and now I've got all of these symbols and stuff that I see in here. What do I do? Well, the blue symbols here, these light ones right here, are suggested records. So what I like to do is I have one window open like this. I'm just going to right click on here, and I'm going to open it into a new tab. So right click on my mouse, open it into a new tab or a new window. And we can go see, well, why is there a blue suggested source on this particular individual? And we'll see over here that the system, through indexing or through other people adding material, or through a partial connection of some material that's not fully connected, will suggest, make suggested research helps here. Now, sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're very generic, and sometimes not. So we're going to go through this one live, and we're going to do the duplicate after that. So we can see that Suzanne Eckert de Mello has entered in this individual's name, their sex, and their birth date, but you'll notice that there's no sources attached. This is extremely important when you're attaching sources. So there's two things that can happen here. The first one is if this says family search in this here, it means that the family search people, probably in Utah, or somebody that's working on it as a mission, or somebody doing something, has entered it from family search data that they had on microfiche slides or paper documentation or something like this, and they haven't attached the source. Sometimes somebody will come along and this will be flagged as red because the date's not written correctly, or the location is not is not written the correct way. Or sometimes you'll get a source that's written in and the person that wrote it didn't write it the way that it's spelled today, or various other reasons. We might see some examples of that here shortly. And you can fix that in this. Then if you fix it, because the information is already there, it will show your name here, but it will still show as no sources. But wherever possible, attach a source to whatever you're entering in here, because it's going to help you later on, and it's going to help other people later on. And it's a point of verification of that individual, and it helps deconflict from people that may have similar names as well. So if I go to my source over here, it's going to pop up here, and you can say it's not a match. I don't know if it's a match yet or not, or I can review and attach. So I'm going to hit review and attach here. And then it's going to pop up on the right-hand side here, what information is already available for that individual. So if somebody was typing in a bunch of information from that shoebox of documents they have at home, and they didn't scan them in, or they didn't photograph them, then we may find that there's actually a source that's already here that kind of matches it. And what we're looking for is 3 matches. So it's called the Swiss cheese model. And if you think about 3 slices of Swiss cheese, I'm just going to pause my screen here so you can see my face again. Think about Swiss cheese. You know how Swiss cheese has all the holes in it, and when you get it sliced up for a sandwich, it's got the holes in a different spot. What we're looking for is we want to take the Swiss cheese, 3 layers of it, and line it up until there's a hole that goes straight through. This is actually used with aircraft collisions. As an example, there's usually 3 factors that cause the aircraft to crash. It's not usually just one factor, like it could be pilot error, water in the fuel, people not paying attention, a variety of different things, a maintenance issue. It's a similar type of thing with genealogy. What we're looking for is potentially 3 things that appear to align with that individual. And if you've got 3, in my experience, you're generally about 90% certain, maybe more, that that record that you have or that suggested source is a good suggested source. It makes it a lot easier when you're dealing with small communities. So for example, with the family history work that I'm doing in Germany, outside Stuttgart, the families lived in about a 70 by 70 kilometer radius of each other, and it's a conglomeration of a whole bunch of little villages. And so if there's a small village that has like 3 or 4 streets, odds are that there's not going to be a similar couple with the same names, same birth dates, same names of their children that are there. And so some of the things that I'm going to look for, I'm going to share my screen again here again, and we're going to go to source linker right here. So you should be able to see my my source there again. So I'm looking for those 3 things. Now in this particular thing here, this is really interesting because I've got the father's name matches. The mother's name kind of looks like it matches. Now, I don't know if anybody is actually named Amplia. Probably not. And some of these records are extremely hard to read when they're being transcribed from the original record or from microfiche or microfilm into these records. But what I do see is the person's name matches, the year matches, the birth date is an exact match. And I know this family was in Germany, and it looks like it's going to be a good match. And the really cool thing here is here's a spouse that was not previously identified by that other person that was doing the research, but is identified in this particular record. Now I can click on the image here and we'll see if an image pops up. And again, I haven't looked at this before, but you can see momentarily here that these records are very, very hard to read. So I'm going to zoom in here. This one is probably one of the easier ones I've seen, but I have a hard time reading a lot of this stuff. Like it looks like there's a Schaefer here, there's a Heckman here, Kirby, but they'll be written down here on the bottom. Let's click back here, and they'll be written in this record that makes it a little bit easier to see here. So we can find some additional information here. So we can see the marriage place. It was in Mannheim in Prussen, and that funny looking B thing right there is actually a double S. Found that out here later on. So some of these things are kind of awkward for an English speaker like me to take a look at when it was being transcribed from German. So taking a look here, I know this family lived in that area. I know that we know that the names match. We know that the birth date matches. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to attach this record right now, and I'm going to put right in here the reason to attach the source. Why am I attaching it? I'm attaching it because the names, birth date, and location match with existing information for this family. I'm putting it in there. I saw a really cute thing that reason that somebody put a reason in there that said reason to attach, and the answer was because I'm doing genealogy. That's great. Like, I'm really happy that you're doing genealogy. That is actually a good attitude and a good perspective to have. One of the ones that's frustrating is people that put in the word GEDCOM data. When I first started doing this, I didn't know what GEDCOM data meant, and I had to look it up in Google to see what it means. So what it means, it's genealogical data. Like, that's great, but what genealogical data? So I had an interesting experience this week where I had messaged somebody through the messaging system that I showed you there a few minutes ago. And I said, hey, I don't see any sources attached for this individual. Can you tell me where you got this information? And the individual was like, yeah, I got it from Ancestry and from this thing over here. And I'm like, okay, great. So I can go into Ancestry now and search that person out to find it, but I don't know if the source is not attached or if a reason is not giving where they came from. So sometimes in the reasons to attach the source, I might put, it's in the family Bible and I don't have a copy. I can't photocopy it, or I can't get a photo of it or something like that. If you can attach that kind of stuff, that's fantastic. Or this information was passed to me by my mother before she died, and she said this person and this information makes it fit. So if you can provide a reason that is substantial, that's a great thing. So I'm just going to attach this over here. I've got my reason here. I'm going to attach this one over here. I'm going to go over here and attach this one over here. Now I'm going to add this guy right here, Walter Kirchberg, because we know that using that Swiss cheese mold of 3 things lining up fit with this individual. I can take a look here. We know he's a male. We know we have his birth date, which is fantastic because we need at least a birth date and a birth location, or a marriage date and a marriage location, in order to be able to do an ordinance. We know he's dead because he lived in was born in 1883. There's no way that he's still living. Saying here, we're going to add him in. It adds up the data already. We've created this new guy right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click on that, and we're probably going to need to go and find a birth location. And that's why the temple stuff is showing up as orange here, because it hasn't identified a location yet. But I can do that after. The other thing we want to do is we see 2 more people that are down here. We don't know who those 2 people are because it's not noted. Sometimes it says father, sometimes it says mother. But if we go back to our record over here, we can go through here, and these are really good because it tells you, oh, that's the father's name and that's the mother's name. So now we can attach those parents, and what'll happen is we're going to change this. We want to view it from Walter's perspective now that he's attached. And we're going to inject his parents right here. So female deceased, we don't have any other data because this is a marriage record for the child. That's okay. We're going to attach that, and then we're going to attach Theo. And Theo is a really good name here because there's not a lot of people in this time and in this place that are named Theo. So we might be able to get a really good hit on that name. So I'm going to open this up again. So I'm just click on that. I'm going to right click on the guy's name. I'm going to open it into another tab. If you do this too many times, it gets really confusing because you end up with all these tabs with people you're trying to figure out. So what I'll often do is, if I want to work on one line, I'll copy the link up here like this, just Control-C, and I'll put it into a Word document so that I know where I've left off later on. So once I finish one entire line, which could take anywhere from a day to months, I've been working on one particular line for like 3 months. And that's doing multiple hours a week, and I'm still not done. So at least I can come back later on months ahead when I run out of a line and just pick another line and go from there. So let's take a look at Theo. We get a message here missing a vital event. We have one source attached. Ordinances can't be done because we don't have this vital information in here. So if the system searches, and it might take a day or two, or it might not happen at all, or you might have to go to one of these other search things, it will recommend other sources like we just saw for Theo Kirchberg. So we'll leave Theo for now. We'll leave, we'll just check out Walter here while I got him up. And we're missing a standardized marriage place, and we can fix that by going down here. We're going to edit. So we click on the little thing over the little pencil. We're going to edit it, and we're going to see if that place shows up as a potential automatic, because what the system does is it standardizes locations which is a fantastic idea, because that way you don't have a whole bunch of people spelling it with like one N and missing EN on Baden. So we're gonna click on here and we see there's the standardized location comes up as two different things here, but that's fine. We're gonna click on that. It's gonna standardize it. We can put in the reason we're standardizing record if we want, but I've just put the source in so there's nobody else looking at it. I'm gonna save it. And I'm not gonna put my explanation because I just attached it. And then we'll see if this pops up. Check it out. So because I've got that Swiss cheese thing where I've got a date, a name, and a location. Now it says that I can request that record. Now I'm not sure what more information is needed here, but I can request this right now. It goes through a policy thing saying, hey, you can only request stuff for your ancestors or people that you think are your ancestors. Certain groups are excluded. So you can read that later on. I won't go into details. I'll hit accept. And now I've requested those names right here. I've got an expiration date. So they give you 2 years to do the work yourself, or you can share with the temple. So I'm just going to share with the temple there like that. And it's going to show up as shared with temple. And then if I go up to my temple, my contributions, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. There's some statistics in the contributions I'm not going to talk about. If I go to temple, I go to shared, and then you can see this person will show up in the shared person right up at the top here. And there's Walter Kirchberg right there. So he's got his sealing to spouse and then his own work right there, shared with the temple, and somebody will eventually muckle onto that. And you can see 77 of the ones that I've already booked were already completed, and you'll see where they're completed, like all around the world, like Peru, different places, depending on what temples are open right now and where. The last thing I want to talk about is duplicates. So I'm going to close these off here. So right here, I just showed you how to do the standardized stuff there. Again, Susanna didn't put a source in here. I'll have to assume that it's correct, but we do see that a christening date happened on the 18th of April. Family Search put it in, so we can say that that's pretty legit, which means that the information she put in is probably legitimate as well. But we need to standardize these two locations. You can see how it's written here. We'll just change that up here in a minute. But what we have here is a problem with a duplicate child. So if you scroll down in the list, there's two Eckerts born in the same year. And if we just click on them, we can see 22 June 1865 and 22 June 1865. Now, because the name is the same, it's unlikely that they're twins. So there's been a couple instances where I've actually found twins, because you'll have a boy and a girl born on the same day and they die like a week later, or one dies and then the other one doesn't die. So in instances like that, they could definitely be twins. I did find a set of triplets that I think are triplets the other day. It's pretty rare, but it does happen. And you can tell because you got the same name, same parents, same location, same birth date, and 3 of them on the same day. And a lot of times all dead right away, especially later on. So what we want to do is, we got that warning message saying these two are probably the same. So I'm going to copy this ID number here. Sometimes it will show up as being red like it did on the other record. And then I'm going to merge by ID. Oh, it's the same guy here. Hold on a minute here. This one here we want. I'm going to copy that. We're going to merge by ID. If we have a red one here, like we had right here, we can review the merge as well, or you can do it by using that merge function right there. And what we're looking for here is we're looking for that Swiss cheese thing again. We're looking for commonality between the two. And when we're looking at merging, we want to take a look and see, is there commonality in name, commonality in birth, the same location where they were born at, the same parents, the same parents, and any other data that we have, and the system will automatically do this. Now this one here, I'm fairly confident that it's not twins because they have a different name. The birth location, the birth location, the birth date, and the name are all the same, and the parents are all the same. So we have 4 things that all match up. I don't think they're twins because they have a different name. So I'm going to hit yes, continue, and you can compare all that data across, and it will, these little green boxes here will fire off any details that were missed on the other record. So it says we have some deceased information there, so we can insert that over because sometimes the system doesn't always do it. We see that we have the same parents right here. We see that the parents were married in Westphalia, Prussia, which is kind of interesting because sometimes you get things that, especially along the France and German border, sometimes they were born in France and sometimes they were born in German, but they're 2 generations later, but they're born in the same village. So when European nations were fighting, whoever happened to own that land at that time was either French or was German, which is kind of interesting. But we see all the rest of this information is the same. It will automatically push the sources over into the other side. We hit continue, and then it gives us some standard reasons that we can put in there. So the easiest one is here, all vital information relationships match, which they do. So I hit add and it goes in there. You might have another reason why you're doing the merge, and none of these particularly fit, but there's kind of 4 choices that you have here. Everything matches. Most of the stuff matches. Hopefully you can see my cursor there. Most of it matches, but there's minor conflicts. So maybe there's a spelling difference in the name, like Catherine with a K or Catherine with a C, or Eckert with a K or Eckert with a CK. And then sometimes it looks like it's going to be a match, but there's not a ton of information. There's just enough that you think that it's probably the same person. And you'll see that in some instances. If you're not comfortable putting the merge together, just leave it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're ultimately not responsible for the records that are inserted in here. You do the best you can. And sometimes you just get stuck and it's not going to work. And you just walk away and say, you know what, this is what it's going to be. If you've done every reasonable effort to do it, in my opinion, then you've done every reasonable effort you can. And that's it. You can pray about it. You can go to those other search sites. You can contact relatives. You can do other things. But at the end of the day, sometimes you're just going to be stuck and it's not going to progress. And you'll find that depending on if you have a royal line of ancestors, it's easier to find the records. If you get into a line that was not royalty, and as Helen Keller said, we're all descendants of slaves and kings. If you get into the kind of the slave line, then you're not going to find records because they were just common people that lived in a small village. The local clergy may or may not have recorded something. Generally illiterate, and it's just going to end at some point in time and you have nothing left. So you can waste a lot of time trying to figure it out and cause a lot of frustration, or you can move on to something else that you know is going to be more productive, and then you can push through and get more names done and provide more information, because the more information you provide as an individual through attached sources, through digging through your family shoebox looking for stuff and sticking it in here, the better off the whole system is going to be, because somebody else has a shoebox with information, and somebody else has another shoebox, and somebody else has a computer system with something in it, and somebody else has a family Bible with a bunch of stuff written in it from way back when. So the more you contribute, the better the system becomes and the better everybody becomes. We're just going to hit the merge function in there. And just to wrap it up, there's a couple of success factors that I use when I'm doing these types of things. So one of the things I do is I set a goal for time. So this year, my goal was to do 200 hours of genealogy work this year, and I should hit that here in the next week or two. So earlier than December. Last year, my goal was to do 100 hours. So roughly 2 hours a week. The year before that, my goal was to do an hour a week. And then before that, it was kind of sporadic. But I found that by setting time goals for myself, saying, look, I want to do X number of hours per year. And you can start small, maybe 1 hour a week. Most people can spare kind of 1 hour a week. You don't get frustrated by trying to get using a goal like I want to have 25 names for the temple. I found that by using time, those names will come automatically. And the more that you do, the more the names will flow, the more ordinances you're going to find, the more work. Like I have more names here than I could almost do in a lifetime. If I were to go to the temple 40 hours a week, it would take me, for the names that I've already done here just in the last 2 years, would be like 1 year to 2 years of full-time 40 hours a week in the temple all the time. So there's more than I can possibly do right now. Maybe I can do more when I'm retired, but the more searching and stuff you do, the more names you find. Just for kicks, I want to see roughly how many names I could get in an hour. And sometimes it ranges from 1, and I've had up to over 50 names to send to the temple in an hour. just because you find some records and the family's got 19 kids, each with one record that confirms that birth date, that birth location. You find 3 families like that in an hour, and pretty soon everything adds up really, really quickly. So track your time, set a goal, and then track your time. And if you do that, you'll start to see many other benefits that will be coming from this, and the world will just open up dramatically after just a couple hours. And if you look in the my contributions, I'm not going to go in there, but you'll see a graph that shows how many records you've gone through, how many names you've contributed, and then I've got an Excel sheet where I track my time, and that's hugely beneficial. So if you start off small, at least you have a goal to work towards. If you don't have a goal to work towards, a lot of times like, oh, well, you know, I'll get to it when I get to it. But if you have a goal, you have something in mind, that's going to help you contribute to that. Are there any questions?
I don't think we have time for any questions right now. Brother Bennett, we need to get on with the next presentation. We thank you very much for a very good presentation.
Perfect. Okay, so I have to head back to work here. So I'm just going to sign out here. If people do have questions, feel free to email me, give me a phone call, call me. I'm more than happy to help people figure out how to do stuff. I'm not so good with like how to get a membership number and that kind of thing. That's kind of a clerk job, or even finding out who the clerk is. I'm not really sure who that is either. But by all means, reach out to me if you have a problem or a concern, or you're not sure about one of the functions or that kind of thing. Okay.
Could you put your email address in the chat before you go, please?
Sure can. I'll put that in my phone number as well, because you're not going to find me in the church index.
No, thank you for a great presentation.
My membership is still in transit from my last ward. My family's been living here for a while, but I have not. So there's my email address and my phone number. Best way to get a hold of me is email, because I frequently don't have my phone with me during the day, and I'm not on my computer system all the time. So there we go.
Thank you. So we'll turn the time over to Sister Cheeseman now.
Are you sure? Because I think Brother Bennett did most of what I was going to talk about. Not true. So my presentation has been called how to get virtual cards. So there's no such thing as a virtual card. You will never be able to take your phone to the Vale and hand it to a worker and proceed with ordinances that way. Currently, so what has happened in the past, I'm just going to share my screen. As soon as I find it, there it is. All right, so this is currently, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of things that you can do to prepare names for the temple. And the easiest way that I've seen is to do it through Family Search. There's also an app that I use that's called Take a Name. And you just get it at the App Store. Google Play is where I've got it. It's free. And when you log in with your Family Search login into it, it automatically searches for all of the ordinances that are ready. And then it gives you a map on where they were born. It gives you your relationship, and it gives you a virtual card for you to print. So I can't show you my phone. I can just, I can tell you the name of the app, and you can take it to your Family History Center if you don't have a printer, or if you can print for your phone, you can print at home. But currently at the Toronto Temple, they're not accepting, you can't print. So I'll show you what I do. So first of all, I've logged in, and I'm logged in. Brother Bennett talked about creating your own account in Family History, in Family Search. Your record number is in LDS Tools. So if you go to LDS Tools and look yourself up and find yourself, you'll find that in there, you'll, under your background information and information, that your membership record should be there. If you log into the church website, you've already created a membership number, but it's also located there. In the directory on LDS Tools, under your branch, you'll see organizations. Under the organizations that, hey, I can actually do that because, you know, just to make sure. Yes. I use a fingerprint to get in. So under the directory, I've got Kingston, Ontario. I go to Kingston branch, and I can go to organizations, and I can go to branch presidency, and it tells me that the branch executive secretary is Dixon, Jordan Joseph Vernon. If you click on him, you'll have his email address and his phone number. Call him and say, hey, I need my membership number. Can you find it? Tackle him at the end of sacrament. He's a good looking boy with a beard, and he's quite young, so he can take all of your attacks. All right. So once you've got your account, you're going to enter in your information, and you're going to follow the directions that, the wonderful directions that Brother Bennett gave us. So I'm going to go to my family tree, and it wants me to sign in again because I was sitting idle for so long. Oh, I don't want to do it that way. So normally this is where you are. This is what your family tree looks like. And it's kind of arduous to go all over the place. I just need to see. So one of the first things is you want to click, I'm assuming everybody can see what I'm doing. So you want to go to options, and you want to click on temple ordinances so they show. If it's green, it means that the person is, that they have available ordinances to be performed. This means that you're missing information, and this means that you're in progress. Okay, so I have been to the temple since the pandemic. If anybody has questions about that, I'd be more than happy, within the realm of reason, of course, to share with you. So when I'm looking for ordinances, I am going to change to a fan chart. Isn't that awesome? Now I can draw down and I can see all the greens are ready to go to the temple. The oranges need work. The blue ones are ones that I've already printed and I've got ready. They're on their way to the temple. I do go to the temple every month. Now, if you want to do a baptism, I'm gonna pull up Elizabeth Kramer, because they have to be at least 1800. So you can't do work for anybody who's been dead less than 100 years currently. And they have to be your family member, clearly. So there, I found Elizabeth Kramer. So Elizabeth Kramer and Christoph Kramer are ready, and I know that I have to work on somebody else. So Elizabeth Kramer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on her, and it's going to give me her membership card. And I'm just going to right click down here. No, I'm not. Oh, there's a water. All right. I can't get at it because of just a minute. There we go. That's not what I want. I'll do Christoph. So what's happening is the bar at the bottom that says you're screen sharing, I can't get rid of it. There we go. All right, so now I can see. So I go on person, I right click, and I open the link in a new tab, just the way that Brother Bennett shared with us. I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm just gonna click on her. So now I'm gonna interview her. So I'm the bishop of my own family. So I want to make sure that, okay, so I've got a birth, I've got a place. All I've got is deceased. I would go in now and I would look to see if I could find anything. See, there's no sources up here. I'm not sure who did this record because it's not listed here, but it's a partial record. So there's no sources attached and a possible missing child. So I would go into Family Search and Ancestry. Are you aware that you have free access to all of these programs? So if you're not aware, Family Search, Ancestry.ca, Find My Past, My Heritage, you can actually access those applications, create accounts, and it's all looked after by Family Search, your accounts. So you can go in there and search to your heart's content. It's something that the church gives us. So I'm not going to research this person because there's a lack of time, but I am going to pull up. So everything has been done for this person. What they're ready for is the sealing to spouse. So I go up and I request it. I'm going to request it. There you go. And the church policy, you are responsible to submit names of immediate family, biological descendants of your ancestors. Don't do famous people. Don't try to get Elvis Presley baptized. Because it's not your job, it's Priscilla and his daughter's job. Okay, so again, I gotta get rid of that. Okay, so you accept the terms of use and the First Presidency message on names submitted for temple ordinances. Okay, so there you are. So now you can share it with the temple or share it with a family member. So I don't do sealings for the most part because I don't have anybody to go to the temple with. I can make an arrangement. I'm sure there's members of the church that would go with me, but I could send it to my brother in Utah, and he could do sealings. Or I could share it with my son Josh, and him and his wife could do sealings. And that way we're all kind of involved. But if you want to print, so these are family, this is why it's select the ordinance you'd like to print, which is sealing to spouse. During 1, 2, and 3 reopening, be aware of these changes. Temples will not be able to print family names for you. Temples will not return cards to you after your visit. You will receive a family search notification to confirm that the ordinance was recorded. Family search is temporarily suspending all temple ordinance expiration dates until the temples reopen. Okay, so then you continue. And it's telling you again that family names, name cards to be used in the temple will be created on this computer. So you must print on white paper. Do you remember back in the old days where you got pink and you got orange for sealings and you got blue for the little boys? Well, they don't do that anymore. They just want you to print it on white paper, cut out the cards, and then wherever it gives you all of the directions. I just need to move this. Wherever possible, a couple should be endowed before being sealed to each other. And then you continue. And there you are. You have directions. So you print it on white paper. Printer settings should be set to portrait, actual size, cut cards, wherever possible. For those who cannot print, write this family ordinance request number down and take it to the temple, give it to the temple workers so they can print the cards for you. They are not currently doing that. So it's important. But I believe that you can take this number, log into Family Search and print your cards at the Family History Center. You can go to libraries and log into your Family Search accounts and print cards that way. And should I go ahead and print this? Just where is it? There we go. Okay, so I've got my printer set up. It's telling me what it looks like. I've got to move you guys out of the way. Hit print. And I mean, and that's about it. That's all you do. So right now my printer is making weird noises, and soon I'm going to have a card that I'm going to cut out. That is as virtual as cards get. And I mean, when you think of it, I'm just going to unreserve this because I don't want to stop anybody else from doing the work if they want. And I can destroy that card. So it came up and just printed just like that. So that's pretty fast. There may come a time where you'll be able to go back to taking stuff to the temple to print, and there is something that you can do. So also, I'm just going to re-request this. I don't know if you remember these. Let's get that. Accept. Another thing that people do is they print an FOR. Continue. It's a family ordinance request. All right, so this is where you would have a list of everything. And then the temple would print the cards for you, but currently they're not doing that. So that's important. Eventually things will change. They are talking about including in Family Search the ability to have these family ordinance requests listing. So this would actually have a list of all of the ordinances that you've selected, and you would go and get all the cards printed. Eventually, they're talking about including in Family Search. I called Salt Lake City about this because I thought it was intriguing to have a virtual card that you'll be able to have that on your phone. So you'll have the Family Search app on your phone. You pull up, all of these will come up. You go to the temple, they scan it, the cards print out. You will always have to have a paper card to do ordinances, because your phones don't go into the temple, into the ordinance rooms, whichever they are. And so your phone is a personal thing. So it's just so you know, I doubt very much. Now, there is something else that you can do. I don't close, unreserve again. This poor person. What's happening? Why is Sister Cheeseman doing that? She's nuts. Okay. So we're gonna, there's another thing that you can do. And I want to go to the landscape. There's also a descendancy. So if you click on descendancy, you get a list of this family, and it gives you their ordinance status and also problems. It would list in here if there was no standardized date or if there was no standardized place. This is something that that happens a lot. In fact, there's a new thing that you can do called, there's new volunteer opportunity. I didn't see it included in the agenda, where you can go in in all different kinds of accounts and change the names and the places and the dates to standardized places and dates. So now I'm just gonna sign out. Okay. So this, just want you to see, take a name. All right, it's not showing it. Okay, so I want apps. I only ever look on my phone, to tell you the truth, so it's funny. Take a name. So this app here, and you can also get Family Search. There's all kinds of them. There's Ancestry. So you can sit on your phone and you can do temple work. If you put this app on your phone, it's free. It's for everyone. You can find temple ancestors, and you'll see here. So on mine, I've got, I don't know, 244 records, 81 ordinances available. And then you just click on the little request, and it comes up with the person's name and well, you have to purchase the app, but you can start out trying it as a free. I like it. I purchased it. I thought it was awesome. It's an actual donation, so you can do as little as what is it, $4 and as much as over $100, or you can click, I can't really afford that, and you carry on. And then you get this screen. This one is Johann Adam Shoemaker. It gives you your relationship, tells you how many, gives you all of the things, and you can less time searching, more time serving. So you can take those names and you can print right from your phone if you have that capability. So I tried to print from my phone, and it didn't work for me. I just want to try to get everything back to where it was. Okay, there we go. All right. All right, so this is one way. It's not virtual, it's virtual per se. Again, I can't stress enough, don't go to the temple with a family ordinance record or with this app and expect them to print at this time. They will eventually develop to the point where you can do that, where you can put everything on a USB and take it to the temple and print the cards. But currently you're going to have to print from home, or you can print at the Family History Center, or you can go to your local library and print. The names themselves in the cards are not sacred. So don't feel uncomfortable going to a library to print the cards. Just don't leave stuff laying around. They're sacred to us. All right. All right, I just read the chats. Like I said, the presentation I was asked to give was one on virtual cards, and I didn't really have enough time to fill with what I was showing. Is there anything anybody would be interested in seeing? Gonna sign in again. Okay, so you have the volunteers. One of the things I love about the website is is that it gives you a snapshot of what has been going on with your family tree. This is my grandmother, my great grandmother. That is my grandmother. That is my dad. This is an uncle who was in World War II, Cyril Marshall. This is Percy Leopold Marshall. He came back from World War I blind. And that's this is my maternal great grandmother. This is my great great grandfather. He was a miller. There was a huge estrangement in the family. That's my grandmother. But it's fun because Victor C. Powell is my cousin who's not a member of the church in England, and he contributes a lot. So he has access to things that I simply don't have access to. Also, when you're on your own opening your home page, when you first get into Family Search, it actually gives you things. Here's some stuff to do. And you can go ahead and click on it and do the work. So Gustav Glicks, I'm just gonna open up another link. So it says that he's ready to be baptized, but I don't see enough information. So somewhere 1876 and he's deceased. So I wouldn't actually do the ordinance for him. I would go and do some family search. I just click on family search. And then I start looking at, so they have different Gustav Glicks from the United States Census. I've never been able to find anything. So then you would go through different family members, because sometimes if you start looking at, so Katerina Maria Elizabeth von Mandel, she's a German relative of mine, and she is from the House of Hanover. Lots of records. So I should be able to find a marriage certificate or something that will give me more information. You'll see that the von Mandel part of the family is quite extensive. So I should be able to find a marriage certificate. If on her, I don't see any sources whatsoever. And so I would go looking for sources. A marriage certificate would give me the information I need for Gustav. So I know that as you search and you put an effort forth in family history with an eye on building your family and connecting your family all together, that that you will be helped in ways that are amazing. One of the things that I find interesting in family search is you can go to this activities and you can go in and see where you're from, and it'll give you snapshots of, so that I have 68 people in Ireland, which it just gives you a snapshot of things, and there's my heritage, gives you all the flags and all that. I have 6% in Jamaica and 53% in the United Kingdom. So that could be not completely true, simply because I haven't done all my genealogy yet. So there is an activity. It's interesting. You can put your name in. There's a lot of things that you can do on Family Search. When you get to the point where you feel kind of frustrated, like, who is this Gustav Glicks? I just can't find anything. Go and look around Family Search. Nothing that you're going to do in there is going to cause the Taliban to come over the hill. Go in there and play, click on things, have fun, look at your family members, upload pictures, tell stories. Don't turn it into I must get names to the temple and get frustrated, because that will, I think I have a quote here from President Nelson. It's reference to Matthew 5, chapter 5, verse 48. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect. And President Nelson cautions us, Keeping this commandment can be a concern because each of us is far from perfect. We all need to remember men are that they might have joy, not guilt trips. When our imperfections appear, we can keep trying to correct them. We can be more forgiving of flaws in ourselves and among those we love. We can be comforted and forbearing. We need not be dismayed if our earnest efforts toward perfection now seem so arduous and endless. Perfection is pending. It can come in full only through the Lord. So always remember that this should be an exercise of love. It's like going back and seeing an ancient scrapbook and building a picture of yourself as well as your family. Family history should be something that is joyful and something that's an activity that, I don't know, every so often on a rainy day, I like to go through my old photographs and look at my family and how they've developed over the last several years, 30 years, however long my family has been around, my immediate family. I see in myself, my mother, and I know that I'm a lot like my father, and so these are people that I love dearly, and we spent time in the pre-mortal existence with all of these ancestors. And even though you don't remember them, they are standing at your shoulder. They'll help you. They want to help you. And the more people you release from spirit president into paradise, the more people will help you with your ancestry, with your family search. So it's while right now we can't do virtual cards, eventually we'll be able to print things in the temple again. We will always have help. There's always people at church and in genealogical societies and at family history that will absolutely help you and take you along the way. You've just in the short period of time that we've been online, you've received a lot of information really fast. And don't worry, don't worry. Get yourself an account, find your membership number, put your name in, and that's a start. And that's all you need to do immediately. And then you just take your time and enjoy it. Have a good time. And I leave these things with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Cheeseman. That was excellent. Brother Preet, do we know what's going to be happening between 12 and 12:15? Or should we give Sister Piefinch some extra time to do her presentation?
I don't see Sister Piefinch online. I sent both of you a message, unless it's another name.
Actually, I'm here.
We need to change your name. Okay. There we go.
Hi.
Hello, Sister Piefinch. Mimi was going to introduce you, but I don't know too much about you. I just know that you have a vast experience in family history and in church callings, doing this work. And so we know that you are well-versed in all things to do with family history. And we welcome you to our family history and temple conference today. And we turn the time over to you.
Well, thank you so much. I may need some audio kind of guidance in how I can share my presentation. So I'm going to see if I can get this going.
Go down to share screen.
Okay, can you see my presentation?
No. Oh, now we can.
Now you can?
Yeah.
Okay, can you see the single slide?
Single slide. Yeah, it says now they were lost, now they are found, that one.
Okay, perfect. Then I'll begin. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to attend your Temple and Family History Conference. So good morning, brothers and sisters. How I love to have the opportunity of speaking with you on a subject that is near and dear to my heart. It is wonderful to be able to share with you my knowledge about family search and about family history research in general, but it's even better to have the opportunity to share with you my personal experiences and feelings on the subject of temple and family history work, because you as a listener can gain a different perspective about this work and hopefully a greater understanding of the importance and blessings that come to us as we all strive to do temple and family history work. And from what I've seen, you've all been really well instructed already with your speakers that have taught you this day already. What a profound statement for your conference today. They were lost, now they are found. When we think about the reason for why we do temple and family history work, it requires an eternal perspective. Our ancestors who came before us built a foundation for us to enjoy and benefit from while we are on our earthly journey. They lived and loved and now lay asleep, waiting for us to find them and to do for them what they cannot do for themselves. During the restoration of the gospel, we know that the sealing powers were restored with the responsibility for each of us to do temple and family history work. After the dedication of the Salt Lake Temple, President Woodruff emphasized the importance of family in temple work. He said, "We want the Latter-day Saints from this time to trace their genealogies as far as they can, and to be sealed to their fathers and mothers, have children sealed to their parents, and run this chain through as far as you can get it." In 1894, President Woodruff oversaw the establishment of the Genealogical Society of Utah, which led to the church's current worldwide effort to help people search out their ancestors, also known as Family Search. 100 years later, in 1994, Elder Russell M. Nelson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, who is now the current president of the church, observed, "Events of that historic year," referring to 1894, "established family history research and temple service as one work in the church. These events were part of a continuing fulfillment of the prophecy that the hearts of the children shall turn to their fathers." And as we seek out scripture on temple and family history work, there's a good scriptural reference in section 2 of the Doctrine and Covenants, verses 1 to 3, where it states, "Behold, I will reveal unto you the priesthood by the hand of Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And he shall plant in the hearts of the children the promises made to the fathers, and the hearts of the children shall turn to their fathers. If it were not so, the whole earth would be utterly wasted at his coming." For myself, as I have served diligently in temple and family history work, I have felt my heart turn to my ancestors as I have come to know them individually while doing this work. An example of that is while I searched out my paternal ancestors. I started to do family history work as a young teen, as a participant in the Young Women's Personal Progress Program. I set out my goal to research a 4-generation pedigree. This goal ended up being a goal that took well over 20 years to reach. But the important part is that I never gave up, as my family situation made it difficult for me to achieve this goal. My parents divorced when I was very young, and because of the circumstances of the divorce, I was under the sole custody of my mother, and by orders of the courts, I was not to have contact with my father or his family for the duration of my youth. The situation has not changed as time went on, but my desire to seek and find my paternal ancestors was not affected by this challenge. It just took longer. I always prayed to one day have an opportunity to be able to have enough information to go further in my research of my paternal ancestors. I did not know how this would happen, but I knew if I had the faith and followed the promptings of the Spirit, and in doing all that I could do, I could be led to find what I needed. So my focus in my research for the time being turned to my maternal ancestors and then eventually to my husband's ancestry. An opportunity did eventually come where I could research my paternal ancestry. I was prompted to go and seek out the gravesite of my paternal grandfather, Alfred Henry Griffin. And you can see it here in the slide. There's a picture of it. Following the prompting was key to unlocking so much about my paternal ancestry. All I had to begin my research was the names of my grandparents. And I knew my grandfather was born in London, England, and that he had died in 1971 when I was a child. And that was all I had to really start to do my research. I called local cemeteries because when I was doing this, this was before the advent of the internet existed. And I found the cemetery that my grandfather was buried in.
I didn't get that. Could you try?
The day that I went to his gravesite happened to also be the day that his wife, my paternal grandmother, Kathleen Griffin, was being interred into that very same plot. This led me to my grandmother's obituary and the names of her siblings and parents. Beside my paternal great-grandparents' gravesite was also the gravesites of my paternal great-grandparents, Peter Laverne and Kathleen Welch, and some of their children. This was a miraculous discovery, which I knew was heaven sent to me. There was no possibility that I would have known about the death and burial of my grandmother on the very day I was looking for my grandfather's gravesite without being prompted by the Holy Ghost. This experience is very sacred to me, as I know and recognize the hand of the Lord in bringing about the success of this work. And I am grateful to be a participant in this work. I encourage you to seek the Spirit and pray for guidance as you participate in the sacred work of temple and family history work. Well, here, many years later, I managed to get my not only 4-generation, but a 5-generation online tree completed. And one day I was preparing for a talk, and I happened to come across a record hit on my online tree, and it was on Ancestry, and it was for Kathleen Welch, my great-grandmother that I had discovered. And the record hint was a game changer, as they would say. Excuse me. So the record hint was for an immigration record showing that Kate came to Canada at the age of 16 on the SS Bavarian on the 10th of June, 1905, arriving in the port of Montreal. The SS Bavarian, and you can see a picture of it there, 5 months later, on a similar journey from Liverpool to the Gulf of the St. Lawrence, struck a rock and was wrecked in November 1905. So the record indicated Father Hudson's Homes. And you can see I've put an arrow beside that. And I had not heard of Father Hudson before, but Kate was heading to Ottawa, I could see in the record. Now, Family Search has the indexes published online for the Canada Incoming Passenger List, which is what this is a sample record of. And the index and the images are posted also on Ancestry. So as I turned the pages of the records and kept on examining the record before me, I read that the passenger list was a party of 52 children from the Catholic Immigration Association from Father Hudson's Homes in Liverpool, heading to Ottawa and to St. George's home in Hinterberg, to be exact. Well, I knew exactly where that was, as I grew up in the neighborhood in Ottawa. And you can see below there's a picture of St. George's Homes. As a researcher, I knew right away that this meant that Kate, my paternal great-grandmother, was a British home child, because I was familiar with what St. George's home was. If you're not aware of what a British home child is, there are about 100,000 children who came to Canada as British home children in a child immigration schema. The children were indentured servants until reaching the age of 18. Boys often worked as farm laborers, while girls worked as domestic servants. The ages of the children ranged between the ages of 6 months old to 18 years old. Many charitable societies and governments of the day thought it would be a good idea to send these children away to Canada in hopes for a better life, but that meant being sent away from their homeland and separated from their families. Distribution centers were set up across Canada where children were housed until they could be placed into Canadian homes. St. George's home is an example of one of the many distribution centers that existed in Eastern Ontario. The children were sometimes homeless and on their own, living on the streets in England. They could be orphans. They could have come from families where parents could not support them, being economically disadvantaged children, or children whose parents temporarily sent them to the home and unfortunately were permanently separated from their families in these homes, and the children were selected and prepared to go to Canada. So children were taught skills in England to help them prepare for their work life in Canada. Boys were taught trade skills, often woodworking, and girls were taught domestic skills, cooking and cleaning and sewing. The children were provided with basic essentials for their voyage and had to be in good health before being selected for travel to Canada. The Canadian government assisted in this child immigration schema. Having these children filled a labor void that was needed at the time in Canada, which generally lasted until the Great Depression period. The Canadian government inspectors were to go and check on the children and report on their welfare. And these inspection reports are available through Library and Archives Canada. The impact on many children was that the children were separated from their families and never to see their homes again. The home child experience varied. Some children were abused and some passed away during their service, but some were welcomed and loved as equals in many Canadian homes. I do not know at this point what the experience was like for my great-grandmother Kate, but I like to think that Kate benefited from coming to Canada and having better opportunities that may not have been available to her in England. The province of Ontario declared September 28th as the British Home Child Day, which is intended to recognize and honor the contributions of British home children who established roots in Ontario. The story of the British home child, however, does not end with adversity and hardship. With remarkable courage, determination, perseverance, and strength, these children overcame the obstacles before them. Most established roots in Canada and in Ontario, and many went on to lead productive lives and contribute to the economy of Ontario and Canada at large. So I want to share with you a little bit about Kate. So Kate was born on the 17th of September in 1888 in London, England. Unfortunately, I don't have any pictures of her, but I can tell you about her. Kate's parents were Edward Welch and Eliza Davies. This was the second marriage for Edward. His first wife passed away a month after childbirth in 1883 from tuberculosis. Edward married Eliza on the 26th of December in 1887. Now, Kate had an elder stepbrother called Daniel, who was Edward's son from the first marriage. And then Kate had 7 siblings: James, William, Eliza, John, Thomas, Margaret, and Hannah. By the 1901 census in England, we could see that only 5 siblings survived. In 1901, after the census record was recorded, Kate's father, Edward, passes away at the age of 44. What is Eliza, this is Kate's mother, to do to support the 6 children that she has? She is a 34-year-old housewife. So 4 children end up being placed into Father Hudson's care in England, where the children were then sent to Canada to St. George's Home. After finding Kate in the Canadian passenger list on Ancestry, it was a logical move to look for her other siblings in the same record set. And sure enough, we found 3 other siblings coming to Canada as British home children. William Welch arrived in Canada on a ship called the Tenisian in Quebec on the 28th of August, 1908, age 13. Next came James Edward Welch, arrived in Canada on a ship called the Corsican in Quebec City on the 28th of May in 1909, age 11. And James Edward Welch served in World War I and also married a British home child by the name of Emma Hannah King, who came from the Isle of Wight to Montreal, Canada, arriving on the 5th of July, 1907 on the Tenisian with a party of girls traveling to Ottawa with Catholic Charities, age 11. Then John, also known as Jack Welch, arrived in Canada on a ship called the Corsican in Quebec on the 26th of May, 1911, age 12. And I gave you some pictures here so you could see what these ships would have looked like. These were the Allen Line ships that were used to transport many of these British home children who came to Canada. So as I dug into researching about Kate's siblings, I slowly began to build a case study of records upon records about James Edward Welch. I learned that James served in World War I in my search through local newspapers. I found that he was wounded in the Battle of Vimy Ridge. He was shot 5 times, survived. I knew he survived because I read his Canadian expeditionary file from World War I at Library and Archives Canada, and I understood that he came very close to death in his military service. It was indeed a miraculous thing that he survived that battle. And you can see the list of records that I used to different types of records that I looked at to build my case. And you can see a copy of his World War I attestation papers. And if you turn the page on the attestation papers, you'll always have a description of your ancestor, a physical description of them. And if you're lucky, you'll see their signature when they signed up to serve. And also you can see that copy of the local newspaper. So in Ottawa, and I'm sure it's the same in many towns, every day at noon, they would post the casualties. And I've highlighted where you can see the announcement that James had been injured in battle. So I thought I really got to know James really well with many records I accumulated and posted online to my online tree, but nothing prepared me for what happened next. So in the very early days of COVID-19 lockdown, I received a message on Ancestry from Gareth Bowen. He had taken a DNA test and saw that I had posted an online tree and thought he better contact me since we shared a small DNA match. Well, remember Daniel, Kate's stepbrother? Well, Gareth is a direct descendant of Daniel, and we share the same common ancestor, Edward Welch. Meeting Gareth was such a gift. He was so excited and made a special trip to what he called the family archives, meaning his mom's house, and dug through the family archives. What was interesting is that the family never even heard about British home children, and that there were so many family members that came to Canada. So at this point, we're up to 5 British home children being in the family. It was a wonderful family reunion that happened over a century later from that time that Kate and her brothers came to Canada. Gareth provided me with many pictures, documents, and even a letter written by my grand aunt to Daniel about Kate. What was really special for me was the amount of photos Gareth had of James and James's trips to England to visit Daniel over the years. And I've selected a few to show you here. Because I had collected so much records on James, I was able to identify the people in the images. And you can see there's a family gathering, and James is the one that's in the forefront of the picture, sitting down beside his daughter and granddaughter. So I was able to identify people in the images and provide the missing information that Gareth was seeking about Daniel's family. And Gareth was able to provide me with the missing information about Daniel. I'd always wondered, well, what happened to Daniel? He never came over. And now I know. The collaboration with Gareth was truly a gift. I know that I had gathered so much and that I could now prepare these names for temple submissions. I felt that careful research and following the sweet promptings of the Spirit in my research helped to turn my heart towards my ancestors, and in return, their hearts towards me. As for Kate, she went on to marry and raise 13 children. Many served in the Canadian Expeditionary Forces. I am just one of her many descendants, but the only member of the church in her family. I would say that Kate had a good life and passed away at the age of 83. At the time of her death in 1972, she was survived by 25 grandchildren and 20 great-grandchildren. Temple and family history work is important because we are reuniting families for eternity. They were lost, but now they are found. And I just would like to leave you with my testimony that I know that this work is the Lord's work, and that as we pray for guidance, invite the Spirit with us as we do this work, we will have success. And this is the Lord's work, and He will guide our hands to the people, the places, and the documents that we need to help reunite our families eternally. And I leave this message with you in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Pie Finch. That was wonderful. We appreciate you being here with us today to share your family and your testimony with us. Thanks for coming. We have, I think Mimi has a couple of videos that she'd like to share with us now.
Okay, so the videos they're just, I'm just showing them during the break. If you need a break, you're welcome to go get something, but you're also welcome to just enjoy the videos. Share the screen.
I know you probably already know this, but make sure you hit the two boxes down in the left-hand corner for audio and video.
Okay, so just give me a second here. And just while I'm getting set up, the videos that I've selected is just as a reminder that there's many people who they don't have access to family records. due to colonization or, in my country, all the names have been changed, so I can only search back to a few generations. And so there's one video about African Americans and kind of the struggle they've had in getting their family history. And also just a reminder that there's families today that are separated and have lost a lot. I work with refugees, and right now working with Afghanistan families who've been separated, who are in the process of losing those records that one day generations after them are going to look for. So it's just always important to be mindful that not everyone is as lucky. And can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. Mimi.
Okay. And can you hear anything?
No, we can't. Did you hit those two little boxes down
Okay.
in the left corner? You'll have to restart it.
Okay, let me try
Reshare.
that again.
When you bring up that little white screen down in the left-hand corner, there's two boxes. One is for video.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that.
No problem.
We took musician Pharrell Williams on an extraordinary journey, all thanks to one single document. The story begins with his great-great-grandfather, a man named Fenner Williams. Fenner died in 1927, but his sister, Jane Arrington, lived into the late 1930s. And near the end of Jane's life, she was interviewed about her experiences under slavery, allowing Pharrell the opportunity to read the actual words of one of his own relatives who had endured bondage, something very few African Americans are ever able to do.
I was born on the 18th of December, 1852. I was born on the plantation near Tar River. My mother was named Louisa May, and my father was named Lewis May. My mother had 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. The boys were Richard, Pharaoh, Caesar, and Fenner. The girls, Rose and Jane. Jane, that's me.
Wow. That is your great-great-grandfather's sister, and she is your great-great-great-aunt.
Crazy.
Jane Arrington was interviewed as part of what's known as the Slave Narrative Project, a collective oral history comprised of roughly 2,300 interviews with formerly enslaved people. The project was sponsored by the federal government in the 1930s. Jane's words gave Pharrell an intimate glimpse of his ancestors' experience under slavery. Those words also forced him to confront the cruel reality of what those ancestors actually experienced, and the realizations concerning his great-great-grandfather Fenner would strike Pharrell particularly hard. So we estimate that Fenner was born between 1855 and 1857. Okay, we're pretty sure about that. So you know what that means. That means that he was most likely born into slavery and not freed until the end of the Civil War.
Wow, at 10 years old.
The first 10 years of his life would have been spent in slavery.
Wow.
You know, we tend to think of as adults, but think about a little boy.
I don't want to cry, and I'm trying not to be angry.
You're not a machine. This is horrendous. What else can you feel? It's horrible.
It's intense, sir. It's intense.
Pharrell's ancestors likely suffered more than he can even imagine. In her interview, Jane recalled minute details about their daily lives on a cotton plantation, revealing the degradation they endured every day.
We lived in log houses with stick and dirt chimneys. They called them the slave houses. I worked on the farm, cutting corn stalks and tending to cattle in slavery time. Sometimes I swept the yards. After working all day, there was a task of cotton to be picked and spun by them. What kind of people? What kind of people? It puts a very vivid, intense context behind what it means to be African American. And I thank God that I got to hear it, but I'm so sorry they went through this.
Oh, nobody should have gone through this.
It's a lot, man.
Oh,
I have to say I am forever changed.
retrieving lost stories can be an act of restoration, not only of our ancestors' resilience, but of the resilience of the entire human community. To see more incredible
I just wanted to say that last video, for those of you who saw it, of Muhammad being reunited with his family. I think with family history, we often we think about being reunited with those on the other side of the veil, but there's so many people on this side too who are looking to be reunited with their family. And imagine a 9-year-old boy not seeing his mother for 2.5 years, how hard that is. And I think what that story can do for us is just really inspire us to do this family history work. And we don't know what that reunion will feel like on the other side, but we see how happy his mother was, just the emotions in her face and in that little boy's face. And we can think of how that will be for us when we are reunited on the other side. If anyone ever wanted to, when we have families arrive in Kingston, if you ever wanted to see what that's like, that I can let you know, you can come to the Kingston airport when people arrive, and it's such a beautiful reunion to see that and just see the smiles and happiness on people's faces. It's too common with refugees that their children are separated from parents. And I know October 14th, we have children coming to be finally reunited with their parents. Children as young as about 6 years old. Well, it's been 3 years, so we're so happy to see them coming. But we can use those examples and that story, Muhammad's story, as a reminder when we're doing this work, and think of how that reunion will feel. Those who have lost, you may be someone who lost your parents young, or never got to meet a part of your family, uncles, aunts, cousins, as you do this work and you discover them, and you never had that opportunity because they've passed on, and you won't have it until after this life. So I hope those videos, you got something out of them, and that can just be a reminder to you of as you go and do your family history work, and also to help people and other people who maybe don't know how to get this work started, as you help them, and just think about the importance of it. And that's all I have, but I think there's still time before the next sessions start. So if you do need to go stretch your legs or get a drink or something, then please do so now and come back to hear the next sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mimi. Those videos were excellent. Much appreciated. I see a few people wiping their eyes.
So we only have 5 minutes before the next, for the breakout sessions start.
Yeah, that's true, Dan. So Brother Share, are we ready to go into these breakout sessions?
Yes, we are. So what I would recommend to everybody is you go down to your menu if you haven't already done it. A lot of people have registered, and look for breakout sessions, and then just join whichever one you want. And like we said, at 2 minutes, about 4 minutes to 1, we'll send a notification for everybody to come back into the main session. I'm going to go to the indexing one, Kirk, so that we can record it.
Can you, I can't find out where the breakout session rooms are.
They're right down in your menu, right at the bottom where it says mute and start video and that. You might have to go over to more, where it says more, there's 3 dots.
Yeah,
And then it has to say breakout rooms.
nope, it doesn't say that. It says chat, meeting settings, and disconnect audio.
And what are you on? Are you on a PC or a Mac or an iPad, or what are you on?
I'm on a tablet, a Samsung tablet.
Well,
I see breakout rooms on my screen at the bottom.
yeah, try at the top then. Try at the top of the screen.
If you're on a mobile tablet, it may be on the top left where
Yeah.
there's a little cluster of squares that will say join breakout room.
Whoop, hang on. I don't know
President.
where I am now.
President Devon, that's a very nice picture of you. I like it.
Nope. I have leave.
No, that's the opposite.
Oh, well.
Well, you're just gonna have to keep tapping on your screen because we can't see what you have. You know.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
I don't have anything.
Yeah.
Eh. Okay.
okay, people are moving into the rooms. There's still some that haven't. Sister Cheeseman, are you going into a breakout session? Steph, have you still not found it? Okay, I'm still seeing 6 people that are just in the general room. Sister Cheeseman, David's iPad, Michael McDonald, Preet Zoom, and Steph. So you have to go into one of the sessions.
I did a few batches. After Sister Brown showed us, I did a few batches, but I haven't done any since.
Okay. And let's see, who have I missed? I've got a couple of my sisters on here. Okay, Betty, my sister Betty. I've done quite a bit. Okay.
There is somebody.
I thought so.
There is somebody in the unassigned that is on as Preet Zoom, but they haven't moved into one of the sessions.
Okay, well, they may join mine later or something. I don't know.
Maybe
Okay,
we could-
Brother Harrington.
Hello, I'm Jim Harrington from the Belleville branch, and while I have heard of indexing and I have seen it done and watched a workshop on it, I have never had the opportunity to do it.
Okay, perfect. Sister O'Neill.
I have not done any either.
Okay. And Michael McDonald. Maybe he went to one of the other ones. Okay, did I miss anyone? Janet Way, I missed you. Okay, I can't find Janet anymore. Okay, how about my sister Janet? Did I ask you if you'd done any?
I have done
Yes.
a little bit, but it's been a long time.
Okay, so I've got a picture here that we have a couple of people that have done a fair bit of indexing, but most of you are either have never done it before or have done just a very, very little. So this discussion was named as Indexing 101. So it's going to be kind of a beginning thing, how to get started, why we should do it. And we'll try to cover as many of the sort of basic things as we can during the brief time that we have. Okay, first of all, some of you have heard of indexing, maybe you don't even know what it is. So indexing is, there's lots of records out there, lots of genealogical records that, there's parish registers and there's census records and there's immigration records and there's taxation records and draft registration and all kinds of different records out there for just millions and billions of people. And those records can be very hard to find. If you're just going out on your own, you might have to travel to different countries and try to find these records in all the scattered libraries and archives that they might be in, or in old country churches or whatever. And so indexing is part of the process to make searching for records much easier. What an indexer does is you'll be given a certain number of records, probably just a small group of records, maybe one record or maybe 4 or 5 records or maybe 10 pieces of documents, and you will read those records. You'll see the images on your screen. You'll read those records. You'll type in the information that they ask for, then usually name, gender, maybe where they were born, or maybe what year they were born, or their age, or maybe what year the record was created, or different documents will ask you for different kinds of information. You type this in, and then this information goes into these big databases, so that when someone is searching for somebody that was on that record, they can just type in the name in family search, and the search engine will bring up that record because you have indexed it. Otherwise, that person would have had to look for a very long time to find it. Why is indexing important then? Most of you remember the old days. Well, maybe not that. The really old days, you had to go to the different countries to find the records. But even after the church microfilmed a lot of records, why you might have to go to Salt Lake to read the microfilm, or if you have a family history library, family history center that's nearby, you could go there. You could order films and read things. Still takes a long time. I want to tell you briefly a story about my mother-in-law. she grew up in Saskatchewan. She had grandparents that she knew. They both died when she was a child. She loved them very much. They were wonderful people. She knew they were from Scotland. She had no idea where they were from, and they were dead. She couldn't ask them. And she wanted to do her family history, and she wanted to, after she learned about the gospel and was baptized, and she wanted to have their work done, and her grandparents' ancestors as well. She had no idea, just that they were from Scotland. She had a photograph. She didn't know who the people were in the photograph, but it was something that her grandparents had kept. And there were fishing nets in the background in this photograph. So my mother-in-law systematically ordered films from the parish registers of all of the parishes along the coast of Scotland. Scotland has a pretty big coast. And she just did this for a very long time until she finally found these. She found her grandparents as children and their parents, and she knew then the location where her family had come from. And then she was able to extend her family back a long ways. This took her years to do. And there was no indexing back then. People didn't have computers. And so your efforts as indexers will make somebody's life so much easier. Just everybody's contribution will add up into millions of contributions that will make it much easier for us and for many other people to search for their ancestors. To learn about indexing, there's a lot of stuff to learn about indexing. I certainly don't know everything there is to know about indexing. Sister Brown taught me. I was over at her house for about an hour and a half, maybe about 4 years ago, and she told me how to get started. She's been doing it for a lot longer, and she's still learning things about indexing. So this class will not tell you everything you need to know about indexing, but you don't need to know everything about indexing. You just need to know a few basic things to get started. That's what we'll start with today. And when you finish here, you can get started and you can kind of learn as you go along. You'll pick up some of the other things, some of the shortcuts. The most important thing about indexing is take it slow, be very careful, be very accurate, follow the instructions, and as you do more indexing, you'll find that you can do indexing without taking quite so much time, but don't be in a hurry. Try to do it right. Okay, I'm going to try get to experiment on you guys because I have never done screen share before on a Zoom. So, well, except last night when I was. Okay, I might have to back up a little bit and I went to get something to eat on the break and I should have set up this better, but I'll just be a minute here. Okay, I've got to get family search on my other screen. Apologize for making you wait here. I should have had this done. Okay, now I'm ready to do screen share.
You are sharing your screen, Karma, just so you know.
I am sharing. Okay, good. Thank you. I can't tell from here. Okay, so to do indexing, first of all, you go onto family search. And I'm assuming that all of you have an LDS account and you know how to sign in. If you don't know how to sign in, just try to learn everything else. And after we're done here, you need to talk to somebody and learn how to sign in. But I'm assuming most of you know how to do this. So you sign in. So I'll just do that and sign in.
Karma, there's something called a leader in the 2020 Magic Quadrant on that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, so
You did,
so I'm
you
not.
did have the home page a minute ago, and then you went back to this one.
Okay, well, let me see what I can get rid of this.
Watch, you know.
Yeah, I don't want that one either. Okay, it says I am screen sharing, but I'm not sharing the screen I want to share. And
That's right.
you want to help me here?
Go to the screen that you want to share.
I can't find it.
You have to stop screen sharing and then re-screen share the right one. Or,
okay, thank you.
Or change tabs. Is it one of the tabs at the top there?
I couldn't find the tab, but okay, so I stopped screen sharing. Now I'm going to start it again, and I'm going to select the correct. This should work.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, now you should see the family search page. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes.
Okay, and I have already signed in. So up on the top, there's a tree and it says family search, and then it says family tree, search, memories, indexing, so on. Okay, can anybody not see that? You want to click on indexing. And before we get started, I want to show you something else that I want you to see, and I want you to remember after we get done here, so you can do a little homework assignment. I clicked on overview. So I went to indexing, I clicked on overview. And right here it says try a guided tour. This is really good for those of you that have never done indexing, because this will show you, and it will allow you to do a sample indexing document, and it will tell you if you did it right. And it will, anyway, you'll learn about it. It takes about 10 minutes. It's very short, but I would like you to do that if you have never done indexing before, or if you haven't done it for so long that you're not sure you remember. Do the guided tour just to do the sample indexing document, and then it will make more sense to you when you actually start doing your own. Okay, I will back up from there. Okay, I'm going to go to indexing here along the top again. And I'm going to select web indexing. That's what you want to go to if you're going to do indexing. Web indexing, I'll click on that. And this will tell me, it says my batches. Now we can go to find batches. Maybe I should show you that. And find batches, there's a whole lot of different indexing projects that you could choose, and you can scroll through what is available and find something that's of particular interest to you. There's some from all different, or well, several different countries. The selection here will change from week to week because some of the projects get done and then they'll add new ones. Okay, so I would like to, I'm just going to go back here because I have, sorry, I'm kind of a klutz at this, but okay, my batches, I'm going to select a batch that I have already had a quick look at before because I wanted to know what I was getting for this demonstration. So This is, these are Ontario tax assessment records. So that it's Canadian, it's, you might have some kind of connection with it. You'll get a page that looks like this. Now from where you are, it probably looks like the ink is so faint that you can't read it, but it's not quite as bad as it looks. Over here on the left is where you put in information. It says image 1 of 1. In this particular batch that I've selected, you just get one document, but it has probably about 30 different names on it that need to be indexed. So sometimes you'll get a batch that will have 10 different documents, but there'll just be one person on each document. So they're not all the same, but this is what it's like for this one. Okay, so we're going to start indexing now. See here on the right-hand side, it says project instructions, kind of a purple band across the top. Does anyone not have project instructions on their screen?
No, we're seeing the same thing you are.
Okay, good. All right, project instructions are that's the very first thing you should do when you start indexing a batch, unless you've done about a few batches already and you already know these instructions for the batch. But for when you start, read these instructions. You might want to read them 2 or 3 times. You want to read them carefully. Every batch or every project will have different instructions here. So you need to read them, because what you did last time might not apply to this time. So read this stuff carefully. And that's probably the biggest thing that I've found where people have trouble with indexing, is that they don't read the instructions and then they do stuff wrong. So be sure and read these instructions. Once you have, and when you read the instructions, also, I want to point out that they give examples. So read the examples. They'll show you exactly where the information is that you want and where to look for it and how to enter it. Okay, here's an example of how to do a tax assessment record in a city. And here's another one that says how to do a tax assessment record in a township. And it says what to remember about this project. These are the rules that apply to this project that might be different than they are in other projects. So you need to click on that and read through all of those instructions so that you know exactly what you're supposed to do. Also, general indexing guidelines, you need to read those too, because they'll tell you what do you do if there's an alias, or what do you do if there's if you're having trouble with the handwriting or whatever. They give you a lot of tips here. So this stuff that pops up when you first open an indexing project is important. So let's assume that you have read those things and you know all the rules. So we'll spend a little bit of time actually doing an indexing, entering a name or two from this indexing project. Okay, now you probably can't read that, but if we just make it bigger, and it gets quite a bit easier to read. So that's what you'll probably need to do. The first thing they ask is, what city are these records from? Okay, well, I'll make this smaller so we can. I have this cursor that disappears on me sometimes, sorry. Okay, city of Toronto, and the year is 1890. So I'm going to enter in city, I'm going to enter Toronto. Okay, then it says township. Well, on this records, it's either a city or a township, so there's no township mentioned. But do you see that the beside city and beside township, there's a little asterisk? The asterisk means that it's required to put something in that box. So we don't have anything to put in that box, so we're going to put in blank. You can do Control B, and that will list that as blank. The event year, the year this record was created was 1890, so I'll put that in. Okay, and now we're going to start entering the name. Prefix. Prefix means something like Mr., Captain, Doctor, Mrs., Miss. Well, there's nothing like that on this name. But it's required. They require something to be there. So we will do Control B, which is blank, because it doesn't say Mr. Thomas Kendrick. It just says Thomas Kendrick. But you will find records where it will say Mrs. Eliza Smith, or it might say Mrs. James Smith, which means the wife of James Smith. So in that case, you would put in Mrs. But if there's nothing there, you don't add it. Okay, the given name would be Thomas. So we'll type that in. The surname is Kendrick. And it's a good idea to just double check the spelling. We want to put these names exactly as they appear. We don't, if it just says THO period instead of Thomas, you don't write out Thomas, you put it just the way it appears in this record. And they want to know the age. Okay, so it says, there's a column here that says age. Okay, he's 46. So we type in 46 for age. And it wants to know his gender. I got this wrong the first time I indexed these records because I thought, well, it doesn't say what. You can't assume because his name is Thomas that he's a male. He probably is, but you can't assume that if it doesn't say it in the record. But it does say in this record because there's a category here. I found out what this was, MF. That stands for manhood franchise. That means that it's a man and he has a right to vote. So anybody that has MF is a male. I'll scroll down. I think there's a here's somebody that doesn't have MF. So either it's a female or it's here's an Elizabeth Stanisby down here, and she doesn't have MF because she's not doesn't have the manhood franchise. Women in 1890 couldn't vote. So I'm grateful for the progress that we've made. So, but Thomas Kendrick, we know, is a male. So I can put down male. So we filled in everything. The city of Toronto, but it's not in a township. The year 1890, there's no prefix. His name is Thomas Kendrick, age 46 and male. All right. Then what did I do wrong here? Oh, we're going to run out of time anyway. I was going to do another name or two, but I think we'll just leave it at that. But you see the process that you go through. Oh, let me point out a couple of things. Suppose you were filling out the city and you weren't sure what to put there. See that little purple circle with the question mark? If you click on that, that will give you some information that will help you fill out that field. Okay, let's go down to given name. If you click on the question mark, it will give you some information that will help you to put down the right information in given name. It won't tell you what to type in, but it will give you information that you need to do that. Okay, other things to watch out for. If somebody's name is Thomas and it's spelled T-O-M-A-S instead of T-H-O-M-A-S, and don't just assume that everybody spells it T-H-O-M-A-S, that don't correct the spelling, type it exactly the way you see it. And don't, if it says something like John Smith and his wife Mary, you can index Mary, but you cannot assume that her surname is Smith. Probably is, but you can't, if it doesn't say Mary Smith, you just have to leave her surname blank because you don't know. So anyway, that's kind of a brief introduction into what you'll come up against when you go into records. Now you might choose batches that look quite a bit different than this, but the principles are the same. You want to enter the names exactly the way they're written. Sometimes the handwriting is a challenge. Sometimes the ink is smudged, sometimes it's very faint. I can't give you a detailed course on how to read handwriting. It really helps if you can read cursive, which some of the younger generation can't do.
Karma,
But I'm
there's
glad
that little icon at the top with the pen.
Yeah, okay, there is a, okay, if you, let's get rid of that. Okay, right here at the top, there are a lot of little tools along here that are helpful to you, and you will learn what they are as you go along. I can't tell you all of those right at this moment, but if you click on that, it will give you some examples of some handwriting that might be helpful to you. Also, often these records are written by the same person. Maybe all of this this one I'm showing you today is written by the same person, so they tend to make their J's the same and they tend to make their N's the same and so on. If you have come to a letter that you're not too sure about, look over the document and see if you can find other places where they have made that letter, and maybe it will be in a word that you can be sure about, and it can give you some clues on how to correctly identify those letters. So study the person's handwriting, and that will be helpful to you. Sometimes you can read part of a name, but there's some letters that you're just not sure about. So this is something I didn't know when I first started doing indexing, but it might be helpful to you to know. If there is one letter in a name that you just can't read, you type out what you can read and you put a question mark in place of that letter. So you are giving them everything that you're sure about, and there's one question mark that you're not too sure if that one letter is an E or an I, or you're not sure. So you can do that. If you have two or more consecutive letters in a word that you can't read, but you can read the rest of it, type what you can, put in an asterisk in the place of those unclear letters, and then type the rest of it, if it's in the middle or if it's at the end or the beginning, whatever. So an asterisk can stand for two or more consecutive letters that are unclear, that you're not sure about. and a question mark if there's just one letter that you're not sure about. One other thing I want to show you, I was so happy when I learned this. Up here where it says data entry, do you see that on the top? You click on that. There's a lot of tricky things you can do with data entry, and I'm not going to get into all of those, but there's one thing that says show ruler. I clicked on that. I've already selected that. But if you are starting out with indexing, that will not be checked. If you click on show ruler, then I'll show you where the ruler is. That's this thing, this yellow. This is very, very useful if you're doing a document that has many lines of data. That ruler, you just slide it right there and you can just read straight across and make sure that you enter Thomas Kendrick, that you get the right age, that you get other information. Sometimes you have to read all the way over to the other side, and that ruler really helps you to not get the lines mixed up. So that's my little gift, because I wish I had known that when I first started to index. Okay, they're going to come and get us in a couple of minutes to join for the closing. So I wanted to just end up here with, so I'm assuming that after you've seen this, you say, okay, well, this might be kind of hard at first, but I can do that. That doesn't look that hard. I mean, if Sister Preet can do it, I can do it. And but when you get home and you start doing indexing, you'll probably find that there are questions that I didn't cover, or things that maybe just we didn't get examples in this particular batch that you'll find in your next batch. So I have a couple of ideas on what you can do to get help. You might want to go back to those project instructions and read them again. Some information that you read before and you weren't sure just what it was, where it applied. Maybe if you read it again, you'll say, okay, I understand now. And those project instructions will help you. I have prepared a handout, so I can't hand it out virtually, but what I will do is I would email it to each one of you. What it is, it's just one page, and it just has a list of some links that you can go to on the internet that will give you a little, maybe 2 or 4 or 6 page handout on indexing that will answer some of your questions. And it has some visuals and there's a lot more information. So I've got the handout with the links, and I will email that to each of you. Another place you can go for help is talk to the family history consultants in your branch. And maybe there are other people that aren't family history consultants, but they're doing indexing. Talk to other indexers and they'll help you. They maybe have solved the same problem that you're coming up against. I would be happy to talk to any of you. If you want to phone me, if you have a question, you're doing indexing and you say, Sister Preet, you never told me what to do here. I'll try to help you. And if I don't know the answer, I'll ask Sister Brown. But the most important thing is, don't get frustrated. Don't get discouraged. Don't quit. Try to do indexing on a regular basis, maybe a certain day every week, or indexing is of a nature that you can, if you have 15 minutes to do indexing, you can sit down and do 15 minutes. If you don't finish the batch, you can turn your computer off and come back to it the next day and finish it. You can fit it into little spaces in your schedule that will help you to over time, you'll be able to index a lot of names.
Karma, there's one question here. How do you
Okay.
save this and move to the next line?
I think she needs to just go to entry. Go up to entry. And
Oh,
hit the next
on
arrow.
entries.
Yeah.
Okay, if I want to, I don't know why.
If you want to go on to the next line.
Just hit entry in the arrow and it'll take you to the next entry.
Right below where you are there.
Right below.
Right here? Oh,
Right there.
right here. Okay.
Yeah. And that's
Okay,
ready for
so-
the second line.
Okay. I'm used to clicking on something down below, but it wasn't showing up. So thank you very much. Okay, so if I want to go to the second line, which is,
Move your ruler up.
Patrick Murray. Okay, so I would put in Toronto, blank for the township. The event year is still 1890. There's no prefix. I type in Patrick Murray. His age is 25. And his gender, he has the manhood franchise, so he's a male. And then I could go to the next one, which is entry 3, and so on. Anyway, just keep in mind that indexing is not that hard. You can do it. Each one of you can do this. Just don't get discouraged, don't give up, and eventually it will be fun. It'll be interesting. You'll see little slices of time and what life was like for people. You'll see the kinds of professions that they have. You'll see people immigrating from Europe. You'll see people anyway, just there's stories behind all of these names, and you get just a little glimpse of their story by indexing these records. And the people who are searching for these people, they won't know who you are, but they will be so grateful for whoever indexed these records so that they can sit down at their computer at home and find these people and complete their family trees for whatever reason they're doing, whether they're church members and looking for temple ordinances, or whether they're just wanting to have a better idea of their own identity by learning about their ancestors. They will be grateful that you have made this possible for them so much easier and so much faster than my poor mother-in-law, who had to search all the parish records on the coast of Scotland to find her great grandparents. I want to share my testimony that family history work is the work of the Lord, and that doing indexing is a wonderful service to so many people. Something you can do at home, you can do it in any spare moments that you have. And I hope that we'll see a great increase in indexing in our district, because it's something that all of us can do. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Okay.
Amen.
All right, I think we're going to, I said I would send you, email that handout. So I'm gonna make sure that I've got everybody written down.
I have the names there. To get back to the main session, go to the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and it says, if you put your cursor over there, it says leave room. And that will bring you back.
Children, I kind of want to know.
So Kirk, you're muted.
Sorry. So we have everyone back with us? It looks like
No, but they're on the way.
all the breakout rooms are finished.
breakout rooms will all close in 23, 22, 21.
Okay. Well, I was able to visit each breakout room and they were all excellent. I thought they were all excellent.
Kirk, I would wait another 10 seconds and then do your spiel because everybody's going to be closed and in here then.
Okay, another 10 seconds. I'm very impatient. Plus, I'm hungry.
Well, the rooms are all closed now. So there you go.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining today. I was able to visit every breakout session for a few minutes and they were all excellent. Thank you for making those presentations. We've learned a lot today. One thing I've learned is that it used to be a lot harder in everything in life. And it used to be a lot harder to do family history. We have technology today that we can do it. We can do it easier. And of course, for some of us old people that have to learn new technology, it makes it a little difficult in the start, but it's easier to do. It is Heavenly Father's work, the Savior's work. They want us to unite our families eternally. And so I know that this was a great session. I know that sometimes I've been to the temple in the past, and I used to be in charge of organizing the temple trip for the stake. And I was upset one time when gee, there wasn't very many people at the temple from our stake, or I thought there wasn't enough. And oh, what's her name? I forget her name, but the matron of the temple said, Brother Bailey, don't be upset with who didn't come. Be happy for those who did come and the experience that they've been able to have. And it totally changed my perspective immediately. So it would have been nice to have more people here today, but you know what? We've learned, and we can go and spread that learning to others. And so I say that in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. And we'd like to have Sister Spring Schultzka give us the closing prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the opportunity we had to prepare for this conference and also to share together and learn together. We're grateful for the many technologies and opportunities that we have to be able to speed up this work here on the earth for thee. And we pray that we'll be able to strengthen our faith and strengthen our testimony of the importance of this work, that we'll feel a sense of belonging and a sense of who we are, and that we'll feel connected to our ancestors and feel a great love for them, and also feel of their strength and love for us, and that together we'll be able to move forward this work. And these things we pray for humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, everyone.